Hello, Reverend MeeLing, Reverend Susan MeeLing, Lady Dori Belle, Lady MeeLing, Susan MeeLing. I've been known by a few names. So before my head injury on Palm Sunday in 2000, I grew up in New Jersey. And where I grew up in New Jersey, the majority of the time I went to Old Tenet Presbyterian Church in Tenet, New Jersey, which is part of Manalapan Township or Freehold Township, depending on where within the district lines it falls. However, over some time, I wound up going also to the church that's actually on Church Road, which is known as Robertsville Church. And Pastor Brody and Mrs. Brody at the time were in charge of the church. And they also ran the farmers market at the intersection just before going into Asher Holmes Elementary School on Tenet Road. And when not at Old Tenet Presbyterian Church, I'd be, in regards to church services, I'd also go there. And there were a few things. So one particular day, there had been a church service that wasn't actually in the church. It was in the community center. And Pastor Brody had been on the stage, and a bunch of the youth group members there that normally attended the church felt that I didn't belong there, because usually I went to Old Tenet Presbyterian Church. And one day during one of the services, they had the service in the community center because of how large the particular congregation for that day was. And there was a female that was part of the youth group who had an issue with me being there. I can't remember her name, realistically. However, one of the congregants had just had another child. And it was a little baby. And as soon as the little baby saw me, and so the mom said, "Here, Susan, could you hold the baby?" "Sure, no problem." So I held the baby, and the female that normally attended the church got upset from the youth group. And she had said to the mom, she usually babysat, so why didn't, she hands the infant over to her? And why hand it over to me? And the mom had to explain something that there was no need to get jealous. And, whatchamacallit, little baby, just, being a little baby. Just a little baby. And so then that particular youth group member got really upset and actually attempted to take the baby out of my arms. And the mom was like, "Hey, there's no need for you to get jealous. Susan can hold it. It's not a big deal." I think it was a male, but I can't remember specifically. And so the youth group member, I cannot remember her name. She was either in the same grade or older, and she just threw this fit. And it was before the actual church service. And so the mom actually had to calm down the babysitter because she handed the baby to me, and I because apparently she normally babysat. And the father came over and he looked and he was like, "Oh, Susan, you met who, I can't remember the baby's name. It's before my head injury on Palm Sunday in 2000." And he was just like, "He's really taken to you." And no big deal. Not no big deal. Just one of those, I was used to it. So, I've helped out in the nursery a bunch at Old Tenant Presbyterian Church. The mom is calming down this female. And it's just like, it's not that big of a deal. Father and I start speaking, and he was like, "I bet you are a wonderful babysitter." I was like, "Well, Old Tenant Presbyterian Church has no problem when I'm in the nursery. None of the children get upset, and all the babies kind of like gravitate towards me." And so, he's just being a little baby, and that's all it was. And the female got upset. She just, the more the father and the mother were like, "Susan, you're doing great with the baby." That female started losing it more and more and more. And she threw this massively huge temper tantrum. And I was like, well, for someone who's a babysitter, probably shouldn't be such a baby. No, that might not be the best thing to say right now. Just throwing that out there. And the baby that I was holding started laughing. He just started cackling and giggling, and it was just like, "Well, apparently you thought that was funny now, didn't you?" and he did. He just laughed a whole bunch more, and did the baby thing. It just started cooing and everything like that. It's like, "Oh, little baby." So after the mom calmed down the babysitter from another person holding her child, just say, so it was a really weird situation. It was just one of those, "Oh, okay, whatever." I have been around some odd situations by a lot by that point. That was not something I was accustomed to. I have to say that kind of stood out, where it was like, okay, well, I'm just going to play with the baby. Because, I don't know, which one of you is younger, you or that one. And that did not help the situation, apparently. And it was just one of those, and the baby started laughing even more. I was like, "What you do? Yeah, look at you." And so, and obviously well before my hair cut and hair color and tattoos, well before. And so, that female just went outside, had to calm down, just temper tantrum. And it was just, "Oh, baby shitter. And then the baby laughed, and it was just like, "Yes." Because, holding on the fingers and stuff like, "Yes." So, Pastor Brody began calling everybody to the stage that he was going to be on, and then, where all the congregants and visitors sat, because technically I was a visitor. And so that particular female cleared out whoever was sitting in the chair next to me. "I want to sit next to Susan. I want to know who it is." And it's like, alright, whatever. I don't know what your problem is, but, whatever. Sure. Apparently you are absolutely used to getting your way every single day. What is that like? I don't know what's that like. I'm genuinely asking. She thought I was being mean, and I was genuinely asking, what's that like? what is that like for, you know, everyone to like that? Just, what is that like? It must be nice. You know, I mean, seriously. So, and there's a term. It is a fairly derogatory term, but it is a term nonetheless, and it's not necessarily derogatory depending on the intent of using it. And the term is Jap, and it's on the East Coast, and that means Jewish American Princess. And those from the East Coast know and you don't actually have to be Jewish for that, like, at all. It's just caps, you know, like, there are some from the East Coast who especially understand what I mean. And so, not the only area, obviously, but this particular female fit that to a T. And it's just, what's that like? You know, you tell your parents what you want and they buy it for you without any hesitation. You don't have to get a job. Wow. What's your allowance? And her allowance per week was like more than what I make in a month. And I was like, what's that like? And I'm talking now. What I make in a month now was her allowance per week. Back in the like 1990s. So I'm just saying, it's like, how does that work? What's that like? Wait, let me understand. Your parents pay for like everything, and then you get an allowance of how much a week? A week? Wow. And they bought you a car? You don't even have to buy your own car? I mean, I couldn't drive by that point, but I already knew I was going to have to buy my car. And I was like, what is that like? She got a brand new BMW. It was one of those, oh, wow. And you get an allowance? You don't even have to work? Like, have you babysit every now and then? And what? Really? You've never worked like worked? What is that like? Wow. So, she thought I was being sarcastic. I was being serious. It was one of those, you don't have to cook your own food? Why not? Why don't you have to cook your own food? You don't have to cook for your own family? Really? What is that like? What is that like? Wait, what? Completely foreign to me. Absolutely foreign. Like, in every way. And it was just one of those, wow. What is that like? And your parents care about you too? Whoa! What is that like? She really thought I was being sarcastic. And it's like, no. I'm genuinely asking you, what is that like? Seriously. She got mad at that. I was like, why are you mad at me for asking what's that like? That sounds awesome. Especially compared to what I deal with and have dealt with. What is that like? Wow. Seriously. So, the pastor started the sermon and the service, and at one point he had asked, does anybody have a question as to the existence of God after his sermon? And I raised my hand. And she got mad. The female, she got mad. She put my hand down. I was like, I want to ask a question if I want to. And so after a few, like, Pastor Brody did not see my hand go up initially. And every time he looked over, she was pushing my hand down. And finally, I just pushed her away. I'm like, and so Pastor Brody was like, okay. Mrs. Brody came up and she started talking to the congregation, and Pastor Brody and I went to his office and we started talking. And he had asked me a few questions as far as what I was concerned about, and I asked him a bunch of questions. Now, mind you, this was after, I think it was like 1990s. I think it was either 1994, 1995, or 1996. And so Pastor Brody asked me a few questions, and in turn I asked Pastor Brody a bunch of questions. And he just kind of took a little bit of a jolt, and he goes, "Why would you ask that, Susan?" And so I started explaining what happens at Old Town Presbyterian Church and different aspects of questions, and he just sat there and he listened. And the more I spoke, the bigger his eyes got. And I was just asking question after question, and he just kind of, oh my God, Susan, really? Really? That's what you're going to ask me? Aren't you a little young for that? And I looked at him and I was like, why am I too young to ask that? I genuinely would like to know. And he had told me that he had written a thesis in pastoral college that had certain aspects in regards to my questions. I can't remember them as far as my questions at the time. But he was just, I had to write a thesis on that. And I was like, oh, what's it? Well, what were your answers? And he gave me some of his answers. So then I asked him a bunch of questions, and he was like, Susan, oh my God, what? What, Pastor? I was just wondering. And he was taken aback. So we were actually in his office for like probably about an hour, hour and a half. And so he started asking me questions, and I was like, well, this is a turn of events. It's different. Okay. And so towards the end of it, he goes, you definitely have to come back. And I was like, okay, it's not like I live that far. And afterwards, I'm going to pause right there and fast forward a little bit. I started helping out at the farmer's market shortly after, because Mrs. Brody spoke with Anna, my biological mother, and convinced her to let me be around the garden. And so each year, or each time that, because it was multiple years before moving to Illinois, the crops got bigger and bigger, or more and more yields. And Mrs. Brody was like, this is great. The Masters family that owned the farmer's market, or farmer side stand, or whatever it was, they were just, what do you mean? What do you mean all she does is walk by and the plants get greener? And Mrs. Brody was like, watch. So one day, Mr. and Mrs. Masters had been there when I was there, and I had walked up right when they were speaking and that discussion was going on, and Mrs. Masters said, young lady, you come over here right now. Okay. Did I do something wrong? And Mrs. Brody introduced me to them. And Mrs. Masters looked at me and she said, I recognize you. Where do I recognize you from? And I told her whether I was in Asher Holmes or Marlboro Middle School at the time, which was with one of her daughters. And she was like, oh, okay, I recognize you now. And I've seen your picture, or I've seen you different places. And I was like, oh, okay. And so Mr. Masters looks at me and he goes, so Mrs. Brody says that you have some sort of talent with plants. I was like, oh, I just help out where I can. And they were just, well, I want to see it right now. And I was like, well, now that you put me on the spot, I don't really want to do it. Like, not to be rude. It's just, I didn't even realize anybody noticed. And Mrs. Brody spoke to them and she was like, Mr. and Mrs. Masters, she's actually quite shy. And then they, went on, well, their daughter this, and their daughter that, and, don't know many people who attend those, whichever school it was, that aren't boisterous and out there. And I was like, yeah. And then there's me. Actually, kind of like, yeah, like Mrs. Brody said, really, really not the type that, like, okay. And as that discussion was going on, Mr. Masters was looking at the plants behind me, and he goes, what is going on with them? And I look over, I'm like, oh, they can pick up on, like, when I'm not in a good mood. And so they don't, if I'm not in a good mood, they'll still grow and they'll still do stuff. But it's better if I'm in a good mood. And so right now I'm put on the spot, so just a little nervous. They're picking up on that, that's all. And so Mrs. Masters had made a joke, and I kind of giggled a little bit, and the plants perked up a little bit. And Mr. Masters looks at me and goes, oh my God. I look, and I'm like, yeah, so what I do? And he goes, oh, and then they started they went with my mood. And so he's like, okay. Okay. Happy thoughts. Like what? And he goes, think something happy, like right now. Oh, that's not putting me on the spot now. That's a little bit. It's a little much. And so, after we started talking and stuff like that, and then they're just, wow, the plants actually respond to her. And I was like, oh, yeah, it's the thing I do. And they were just, oh, okay, well, that's, oh my God, that's cool. So you do that, huh? Just no problem, you're happy and the plants are happy? Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. When I'm not happy and I'm really aggravated, I've watched how, like, weeds just spout out, and then there's problems. And then, yeah. So I try to do what I can to let that be a problem. And they were just, oh, okay. And so they, every now and then, would attend the church. And I think at that particular event, one or both of them was actually at the church for that service. So as Pastor Brody and I are returning, I didn't know that they were them at that time, of course. One of the two of them was walking out, and Pastor Brody was like, is everything okay? And something had happened or whatever during the service when Mrs. Brody was speaking. And then, Pastor Brody, Susan, go inside. Okay. And so I go and I sit down, and that female that had repeatedly put my hand down, what did you do with that pastor? Asked him some questions. And we talked. about it. Why isn't he in here? Why do you care? Who are you? What does it matter to you what the pastor's doing? Are you the pastor's boss? No, you're not. Chill. You think you're gonna go and boss the pastor around? I got a few things to say about that. You're not gonna go and boss the pastor around. And she just, how dare you? Do you know? I don't care. I don't care. I'm not, no, I don't care. So then the pastor returned and, finished up the rest of the service. After the end of the service, everybody went outside of the main area and went into the common area. It was the equivalent of coffee hour. And so, again, the mom with the baby comes over and she's like, Susan, hold the baby. Oh, okay, no problem. So I'm holding a little baby, and what's her face came around the corner. What are you doing holding my baby? Ooh, I'm not, you go get him, Mom. I don't think that you had this baby in your uterus for 9 months, young lady, but she won't handle you. So I'm just gonna, you don't listen, no, you don't pay attention to her, no, don't pay attention to her. Baby started laughing and cooing, and it's like, yes, you should be baby, yes you are. So there were a few situations with that particular female, and it came to a head when it was the summer VBS or Vacation Bible School event. And that was a problem because they had set up where everybody got a potato sack and you had to run through the obstacle course. And, whoever had the best time won, like any race. Then they started putting in cylinder blocks made out of concrete into the potato sack. And you had to run the obstacle over and over and over again. And, some of the people just dropped down. They were like, I can't even lift the bag, not going to bother. And so that particular female was like, I'm going to beat you, Susan. And I was like, yeah, okay, whatever. Sure. I'm not even trying. At that point, it was like, I'm trying. I'm just doing. And so, I'm not even fully exerting myself. I'm just, I'm being nice. I'm literally walking fast. That's all I'm doing. I'm not even running yet. Just saying, doing the balance beam, and it's like, yeah, whatever. And the little tires that were not little, but the big tires having the. Well, then, a bunch of the parents started complaining because I was apparently walking too fast. It's like, I wasn't even running. So then they started putting more and more concrete blocks into my potato sack. They actually put more concrete blocks in my potato sack than they put in the other one. So like where everybody else got like 1 concrete cylinder block, I got like 5. How is that fair? Can't even go to church? Really? Garbage. So, still did it, still completed the race and stuff like that. And then by the time, essentially, at the end of the race, my potato sack was almost completely full. You would have thought it was like a Santa Claus sack full of toys, but only concrete. And I was just, okay. Still still won, still came in first place, despite the fact that it was extremely unfair. Everybody else got one concrete cylinder block. I got a whole bunch. And so at the end, you know, I won. And there were these guys who were just, how much you want to bet this one's going like New Jersey. Just saying. New Jersey. And so, you know, I'm going to put my money on that one. I'm going to put my money on that one. I was like, you're going to be betting at a church event? Only in New Jersey. Not really, but at this point in time, yeah, only in New Jersey. So then after I won, then that particular female, how dare you still be able to win? Not my fault. You're the slow one. That's not my fault. Apparently that wasn't the nice thing to say. And I was like, just saying. However, the point of all that, because why all that? It's not like prior videos, right? I know. I know. Or at least when it's uploaded or whatever. So, in regards to the church being named Robertsville Church. Oh, I see where that's going around. Okay, now it's making some sense. The irony of it being New Jersey in that regard and certain aspects of where I grew up. What I grew up dealing with. So on and so forth. Not just in regards to one situation of my life or another. However, if you take into consideration the fact that my dead ex-husband's name was Robert, or is, or whatever, when he was alive, whatever, you know what I mean. I'm just you can put certain correlations together in regards to certain aspects, and then one of my childhood friends named Damien had gone to Robertsville Elementary School. Now the difference between that particular female at Robertsville Church and Damien at Robertsville Elementary School, Damien and I were very good friends, extremely good friends, and some people in Marlboro Middle School did not realize how good of friends we were. They may have later on, like much later, but Damien, and his name actually was Damien. That's actually what his name was. He had passed away after a car accident his dad had gotten into, and his dad died on impact, whereas Damien was in a coma for a while. And then they had to pull the plug. But they gave his mom like a little bit of time to try to figure it out. And when it had gone over the announcement system, there was a guy that I was in class with, and his name, Paul Wazalewski. I whispered and mumbled under my breath, and Paul said, "What did you just say?" Said, "I hope Damien makes the right choice so his mom doesn't have to deal with that." And Paul was like, he's going to come back to school. And I'm like, I hope that there is a way for you to work through that. Because Damien has to make that choice on his own. And hopefully he'll make the right choice. So that way his mom doesn't have to deal with that. And Paul didn't understand what I meant. And there were times that Damien, before he had passed, had told, told a few people, you leave her alone. And they never understood why. Because, the way middle school is, and realistically, middle school in Marlboro was the equivalent of certain aspects of college in this era, with certain aspects, because of the way in the East Coast area, you have to be on top of things real early in life. It doesn't matter how easy or hard you have it at home, you have to be on top of things at all times. And so, as far as the aspects of Robertsville Elementary School in comparison to the dichotomy of Robertsville Church, you always have the few that, there's a few worms and a couple apples, but it doesn't ruin the whole tree. It's only a few, sort of thing. I would be an example for that female at Robertsville Church. And so, after waking up from my head injury on Palm Sunday in 2000, and after, that whole time with my now dead ex-husband, I doubt, and it's not in a competitive sort of way. It is not, when I say this, I want to give this as a precursor. It is not in a competitive sort of way. It is not in a malicious sort of way. It is not in a challenge sort of way. It is stating fact that I doubt that there are many females or males who could have survived a lot of the stuff that I did in regards, especially to my now dead ex-husband. Again, I was in a different part of the city, hadn't seen him in 2 days. Just saying. Also, in regards to the fact that my biological mother and biological sister. And so where, in a metaphor sort of way, in a proverbial sort of way, where Anna and Patricia, specifically my biological mother and biological sister, could be equated to some of those concrete cylinders, along with my ex-sisters-in-law, and more so along the lines with my ex-sister-in-law, Mary Evangelina Nichols Osteen, along with more so her eldest daughter, Sandra Marie Osteen, though Ariel Marie Osteen had her own stuff. The vitriol that came from Mary Evangelina Nichols Osteen, where Anna and Patricia could be equated to like one concrete cylinder block individually each, and then like throwing in like maybe one or two extra here and there. Mary Evangelina Nichols Osteen and her eldest daughter, Sandra Marie Osteen, would be the equivalent of throwing like 5, 10 concrete cylinder blocks into that, proverbial bag. And it's just one of those, like, I'm not dealing with enough. Can you stop? I mean, one of the things when it came to being out in Macon, Georgia, before going scuba diving in Florida, or in the ocean off of Florida, was, what is that like to have a husband who actually cares about you? Like, genuinely cares. What's it like, in reference to Sandra Marie, what's it like to have a father that's technically not your father, but has raised you like as if you were actually his? Like, what's that like? And Sandra Marie Osteen, Susan, you just don't understand the hardship of someone who cares. It's difficult to have somebody in your life who cares? I don't know about that. I think that would make things a lot easier. Think of what? I think it would. I have a feeling that you have that backwards. And Sandra Marie Osteen just did not like that statement I made. And it was one of those, why are you complaining? Why are you rude to him? You know, like, really, why? And then when it came to Mary Evangelina Nichols Osteen, what's it like to have a husband who gives a damn? What's that like? And like, actually cares. But Mary Evangelina Nichols Osteen, irony in regards to my scuba diving gear. Before going to the Georgetown Aquarium, just one of those. Irony of that dichotomy, and it was Mary Evangelina Nichols Osteen, her dead brother, named Robert. I mean, you know, he was alive at some point, but Mary Evangelina Nichols Osteen, along with Robert, my now dead ex-husband, both of them ridiculously defended incest to me. And I was one of those, no. You cannot defend it to me where nope, not blood relations, no, just not, no, not at all. I just, no, no. And then there was a point where, when in Georgia, Mary Evangelina Nichols Osteen and her eldest daughter, Sandra Marie Osteen, both defended incest together to me. It was one of those, wow. I mean, you already look alike. Do you really have to sound alike? Do you really have to parrot one another? I mean, seriously. No, it's not something to parrot. That's not something to be for. Which upset them, that I told them that. It was one of those. They acted very similarly to that female from church. It was one of those. You need help. I am not the one to give you that help. I will tell you that right now. I am not the one to give you that help. But as a quick pause at that point, and to go back in regards, there was a point where I was pregnant with my daughter Lydia, and my son James was no. Both Lydia was about 6 or 7 months, and James was about I think I was pregnant. I think I was pregnant. I think I was pregnant with my daughter, or she was fairly young and still in like a car seat. I mean, technically they were both in car seats for a while, but I think it was like 2000. She might have been really, really young and infant age, and went over. No, I think I was still breastfeeding at that time. I think I was still breastfeeding when we went out. So I think Lydia was an infant at that time. And so go out to Alabama, and my now dead ex-husband, then husband, says, let's go to Chandler Mountain. I was pregnant with Lydia. I was pregnant. No. James was still in the car seat. That's what that was. And so I don't really want to go to Chandler Mountain. I don't know, it sounds kind of weird. And so, so didn't really have a choice. Wound up going out to Chandler Mountain. And for those who understand, there were multiple conversations for me to get out of the car. Refused to get out of the car. Refused to set foot on that property. Did not want to have, nope. So get back to great grandma Nichols' house in Steele, Alabama. And she asked why I was so upset. I was like, I don't know where your great-grandson wanted to take me. Like, I don't. So then Robert explains to Great-Grandma Nichols, which is Grandpa Nichols' mom, where he drove to. And she looked at me and she goes, you didn't bring them demons back, did you? I look at her, I'm like, I didn't bring anything back. I refused to get out of the car. And Great-Grandma Nichols goes, good. What's wrong with you, Robert? My now dead ex-husband, of course. And he was like, oh, I thought it'd be fun and it'd be cool to go out there. And I looked at Great-Grandma Nichols, I'm like, what is wrong with that place? And so it was explained to me over time, essentially, that one, there was somebody's family and bunch of bodies found underneath that particular log cabin. And then I found out that there were a few times where my now dead ex-husband, his sisters, and then their cousins played spin the bottle. Yes, you heard that right. My dead ex-husband, when he was alive as a child, playing spin the bottle with his two sisters and their cousins. An old glass Coke bottle. That bottle spun around at one point when Mary had spun it. Irony of irony. Mary of Angelina Nichols Osteen. Spun it around. Then the glass Coke bottle from like the 70s, 80s time frame, so you know how thick that was, rolled across the floorboard, up the wall, about 3-4 feet, slowly rolled back down the wall, rolled back across the wooden slatted floor, and then finished spinning. And as Great-Grandma Nichols was telling me that, I'm listening. Continue. She wound up telling me about the time that Great-Grandpa Nichols had gone to bed, and a bunch of the family was there, some of her children, because she had like 13 or 14 children that survived, and then Grandpa Nichols, Grandma Nichols, and then, you know, several others. And they were all in the living room area. They all saw pajamas walk to the kitchen, fill up a cup of water, and then walk back to the bedroom. Well, Great-Grandma Nichols realized that, there's nothing wrong with that. Those are different pajamas than he went to bed in. And she went to the bedroom, screamed, everybody ran to see why did Great-Grandma Nichols scream. And they all saw Grandpa Nichols, or Great-Grandpa Nichols, laying in bed with the pajamas next to him in full, like, as if an actual person was in it, but not. And Great-Grandpa Nichols was speaking with whatever spirit was speaking to him. And Great-Grandpa Nichols was like, no, I don't want to go yet. No, I'm not ready to go yet. And then, you know, the pajamas of the other, you know, sat up, realizing, essentially, that that was going on, and then, gone. As Great-Grandma Nichols was telling me this, I was just sitting there like, so I'm glad I didn't get out of the car. Really, really glad I did not get out of the car, so that's cool. conversation and fought that off. That's cool. That's cool. I'm pretty proud of myself for surviving that. Okay. Awesome. Great. So then Great Grandma Nichols started telling me that once they moved out of that house, as well as a few other things, the clocks that had the old Felix type clocks, they actually started going forward in time instead of randomly just spinning, the hands on the clock just randomly spinning backwards. And instead of the tail, as it was supposed to go side to side, started going front to back. And I was like, oh, yeah, again, I'm really glad I did not get out of the car. Really proud of myself right now. So proud of myself. And so then, Great Grandma Nichols says, oh, by the way, the eyes also, instead of going side to side, started going up and down. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Another reason why I'm so glad I did not get out of the car. Well, after they had moved out of that house, one of Mary Evangelina Nichols Osteen's, as well as Susie Marie Nichols Lopez, my now dead ex-husband Robert, and then their older brother that's alive, Tony Walker Nichols, aunts named Sandra, spelled exactly the same way as Mary Evangelina Nichols Osteen's daughter, Sondra, Sondra, started having mental health issues. And when I found that out, ironically, Mary Evangelina Nichols Osteen arrived with Sandra Marie and Ariel Marie Osteen. And I looked over and I said, hey, Mary. And Mary looked at me and she goes, what? I said, you might want to change your daughter's name. Like ASAP. Like right now. You should be thinking of another name for your daughter. Save her. And like, seriously. And Mary Evangelina Nichols Osteen, I am paying tribute. That's what her words were. Mary Evangelina Nichols Osteen said she was paying tribute to her Aunt Sandra by naming her eldest daughter Sandra. And I was like, And then I look over at Great Grandma Nichols. Can you finish the rest of that story, please? What happened with your daughter? And Great Grandma Nichols said, well, anytime she was out and running around, like, as long as she was taking her medication, she was okay. However, the demons followed her around, and the stuff and whatnot would start messing with things. And so, in that point, when I was in Portland, Oregon, there's this one particular area where I refused to get out of the car. Refused. I've discussed in prior videos, as well as when in specific talking about my Medal of Honor project and going over Oregon. And that particular cemetery location had similar type of feelings where I had to be told when explaining what happened to my now ex-boyfriend, Jesse Leroy Hoover Jr., I had to be told, did you just say that you rolled up your window before getting to the cemetery? Yes. How much of a cigarette did you have left? Oh, I just lit it. You threw a freshly lit cigarette that you bought in Washington State out the window. Well, I mean, I got rid of the cherry, so that way it wouldn't cause a problem. And so you wasted, I wasn't wasting it. I just wasn't going to have my window open. say. And so he reiterated that to me, and I was like, yeah, what's the big deal? So you didn't know, and there was some female walking around there, like in there, and it was when it was darker, but it was later in the day, and it should have been more sunlight, and it would be some weird, ironic dichotomy if that was Sandra Marie Osteen walking around. Mary Evangelina Nichols Osteen's daughter. It would be such a weird dichotomy and irony in so many ways. Because, similarly to her, dead uncle / spiritual husband, there were those issues that Mary Evangelina Nichols Osteen thought were funny. As did my now dead ex-husband, irony with his name in that regard. And those particular individuals, again, Sandra Marie Osteen and Mary Evangelina Nichols Osteen, had defended incest, just as my now dead ex-husband did. And so the irony of them acting similar to that particular female at Robertsville Church, in comparison to those that I actually got along with more people at Robertsville Elementary School. In a lot of ways, I hung out with a lot of them than I did at Robertsville Church, which is it's a weird dichotomy. So that's And then the fact that Mary Evangelina Nichols Osteen had her dead brother's picture on the nightstand next to her bed. Just saying. If that doesn't prove my point exactly in regards to that sort of defense of that. I warned them. I warned a lot of them. I did. But, I had that head injury on Palm Sunday in 2000. What do I know? I'm just saying. Though there are ways to clear out that energy and stuff like that out of there. There are ways, as far as like the Chandler Mountain area. There are ways to have that not be an issue. There are. Just, you might not like the response on how that happens. Especially if Sandra Marie Nichols Osteen, or Sandra Marie Osteen and Mary Evangelina Nichols Osteen had anything to do with the Medal of Honor Art Project. Though, then again, you might actually like that ending. Especially if they caused problems to my Medal of Honor Art Project. It depends on what line you fall on in those regards. Just saying. Anyway, you guys have a good one. Subscribe to my channel and watch the other videos that I've uploaded, my official videos and stuff, and go to my website, www.susanmeeling.com. You guys have a good one.